Welcome to the Stoic Path, where we explore the road to inner freedom and unshakable strength together. Today, I invite you on a journey that will not only help you overcome your deepest wounds but also transform you into a version of yourself you never imagined, invulnerable, self-reliant, and unbreakable. Have you ever wondered, is silence after a breakup really enough to regain my value in their eyes? Or have you silently waited, hoping they'd look back, only to be disappointed in loneliness? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. But let me reveal a secret: there's a more powerful, deeper path, a path whose impact even those who left you can't foresee. These aren't fleeting psychological tips, but the art of self-mastery, forged from ancient Stoic philosophy, the guiding principle of warriors and philosophers for centuries. I'll tell you the story of a man who was plunged into the abyss by love, but what pulled him out. As someone who has studied psychology and Stoicism for over a decade, I'll share how I, and those around me, have turned pain into an eternal flame. If you're ready to stop waiting and seize your destiny, give me a like, subscribe to the Stoic Path, and leave your thoughts in the comments section so we can build more valuable content together. Let's begin. Imagine a moment where everything you believed in shatters like a glass falling on a stone floor. The person you love most, the one you thought was the center of your world, suddenly leaves you without explanation, just a cold wave, and then they're gone. That's the story of a man I want to tell you about today. He stood there, paralyzed in front of his phone screen, reading the last message over and over as if it would reveal some truth that could soothe the pain. But no, reality remained as cold as a winter wind cutting through skin. The days that followed were a relentless torture, the empty room like a black hole, every note in a familiar song like a dagger to the memory, the large but cold bed a constant reminder of loneliness. He heard her laughter echoing in his head, remembering the eyes that once looked at him as if he were everything, and then suddenly, those eyes turned distant, like looking at a stranger not worth noticing. I've faced this abyss, not only through the stories of others but also in my own life. Many years ago, after a breakup, I fell into a similar state, trying to find meaning in the silences, questioning myself with a series of unanswered questions. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? But through time and the study of Stoic philosophy, I learned from Marcus Aurelius that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Pain is not an enemy to run from, but a harsh teacher, forcing you to confront yourself. This man also began that journey. He heard the familiar advice: go no contact, disappear. He deleted her number, stopped scrolling through social media, trying to appear strong. But deep down, he was still imprisoned by constant thoughts of her, a prisoner of his own mind. If you've ever been in this situation, you'll understand, no contact is just the first step, not the ultimate solution. No contact is the strategy most people hear after a breakup. The idea is simple: cut off all contact, disappear from their radar, and wait for them to realize the void you left behind. Sounds like a perfect plan, right? The man in our story thought so too. He imagined a day when she would panic at not seeing his messages, would check her phone and realize she had lost him. He told himself that his silence would make her miss him, would pull her back. But the reality was much harsher. Most of the time, what he expected didn't happen, or if it did, it didn't mean what he hoped. In my years of working with psychology and counseling, I've seen this happen repeatedly. No contact is just a surface layer. It doesn't touch the core of the problem. You can stop texting, stop calling, but in your mind, you're still stuck in a cycle of hope and waiting. Psychology calls this cover dependency. Even if you don't act, you still let your happiness depend on the reaction of another person. Women, or anyone, can sense this intuitively. They know when you're just pretending to be strong, when you're still peeking, still waiting. And then, when they do reach out, maybe just a probing message, you respond too quickly, too enthusiastically, and they leave again, even more certain that their decision was right. I made this mistake myself. After 3 months of silence, I replied to a message with all my pent-up excitement, only to see them disappear immediately after. Why? Because I hadn't truly let go. I was just playing a disguised waiting game. Stoic philosophy, as Seneca wrote, teaches us, true happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future. No contact isn't enough because it keeps you in a passive state, dependent on others to define your worth. We need a stronger approach, one that not only gets their attention but also frees you from the chains of the past. Now is the time to get to the heart of the strategy, not just silence, but inner freedom, the state where you not only cut off contact but also sever all emotional ties with the other person. The man in the story realized this after months of fruitless waiting in silence. He decided not just to stop texting, but to completely erase her from his mind. No checking social media, no wondering what she's doing, no holding on to even a faint glimmer of hope. The difference lies here. Silence is passive. It still leaves room for longing. Inner freedom is active. It's a declaration that you no longer need them to feel complete. I've applied this principle in my own life and witnessed its power. Years ago, after giving up on waiting for someone who no longer cared, I shifted my focus to myself, not to prove anything to them, but to live true to what I believed in. Seneca said, "You only have control over your mind, not outside events." When you truly let go, something magical happens. Your energy changes, and others sense it without you having to say a word. For this man, she didn't notice immediately. But as he began to live with a new serenity, not through words, but through the way he presented himself, she began to get curious. Psychology shows that people are attracted to what they can control or fully understand. When you reach a state of invulnerability, they start to panic, not because you disappeared, but because you're no longer affected by them. But here's my point: after years of studying Stoicism, don't do this to get their attention. Do this for yourself. I've seen too many people get bogged down in trying to make their ex regret it, and they lose sight of the real goal, inner freedom. When you no longer need validation from anyone else, you become the strongest version of yourself. Why is inner freedom so effective? Let's look through the lens of psychology. People tend not to appreciate what is easily obtained. They crave what they fear they will lose forever. For the man in the story, when he truly moved on and lived a life that no longer revolved around her, she began to feel a void. She secretly checked his social media, hoping to see him still brooding, still hurt. But no, he was living, growing, and in his new world, there was no room for her. I remember a famous study in psychology on the scarcity effect. When something becomes scarce, its value skyrockets in our perception. When you make yourself someone they can't reach, they start to question themselves. Was I wrong? What did I lose? But here's what I want to emphasize. Don't turn this into a revenge game. I used to think that making others regret it would bring satisfaction, but over time, I realized it was just a hollow victory. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Inner freedom is not a tool to defeat others, but a path for you to overcome yourself. When she reaches out, and believe me, this often happens, it's not because they truly miss you, but because they fear losing control. I've seen this in reality. A client of mine received a message from his ex after 6 months, simply because he no longer reacted as he used to. He chose not to reply, and that was the proof of true strength, not intentional ignoring, but a natural indifference that comes from no longer needing them. Now, let's dive into how to do it. Turn pain into strength through Stoic philosophy. The man in the story didn't run from the pain, he faced it. He learned to control his emotions, focusing on what he could change, his mind, body, and spirit. He went to the gym not to impress anyone, but to forge an iron will. He read books, meditated, and step by step, he built an unshakable version of himself. I've applied this and I advise you to do the same. For me, the journey started with the mind. Every day, I spend 15 minutes journaling, categorizing what I can control, like my thoughts and actions, and what I need to let go of, like the reactions of others. Seneca called this the art of acceptance, not resisting reality, but using it as a springboard for growth. Then I trained my body. I started running every morning, not to have a good physique, but to remind myself that I can overcome any limit. The result is not only physical health, but mental resilience, something no one can take away. My point is, modern society often sees breakups as a failure to be hidden, but with Stoicism, it's an opportunity for rebirth. Pain is not a prison that confines you, it's a forge that tempers you. This man didn't become the best version of himself to make her come back, but because he realized he deserved it. And so do you. Pain doesn't define you, how you face it is what makes you who you are. This man didn't need to shout to the world that he had moved on. He didn't post boastful pictures, didn't write cryptic status updates, he just lived, and lived authentically. That made her more uneasy than any reproach. There was no anger, no bitterness, just his complete absence from her emotional world. She expected him to show her it, but instead, he was as calm as a mountain in a storm. I believe this is one of the most profound lessons from Stoicism. Actions have greater power than words. In my life, when I stopped trying to explain or prove my worth, everything changed. People didn't notice because I was shouting, but because I was silent but exuded an undeniable strength. For this man, she secretly watched his stories, looking for signs that he was still affected. But he left nothing but a thriving life. A life in which she was no longer a part. My personal opinion, we often waste too much energy trying to impress or argue with people who no longer matter. Keep that energy for yourself. When you are truly strong, you don't need to speak, your presence will speak for itself. The philosopher Epictetus wrote, "No man is hurt but by himself." Silence is not weakness, it is ultimate power. Instead of disappearing completely, This man chose a different approach, to be present in a mysterious way. He didn't block her, didn't erase all traces, he just became unpredictable. An uncaptioned photo of a peaceful morning, a fleeting moment of calm, just enough to make her wonder, what is he doing? How has he changed? He was no longer the open book she was familiar with. Now, he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. I've experimented with this in my own life. After a period of silence, I posted a simple picture, a cup of coffee by the window, no explanation, no emotion. The result? My ex texted me soon after, curious about how I was doing. But here's what I learned from Stoicism. Mystery isn't a tool to lure someone back, it's a reminder that you don't need to explain your life to anyone. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Life as on a mountain. When you no longer seek attention, you become naturally attractive." When she tried to figure him out, she failed. He was no longer the predictable man she once knew. He was a mystery, and mystery always has a strong allure. Psychology calls this the Zeigarnik effect. People are obsessed with what is unfinished, not fully understood. But the real power lies in the fact that you're not doing this for them, you're doing it for yourself. Sooner or later, they will reach out. That's the law of human psychology. For this man, one day she sent a message, "How are you?" A small test, a hook to see if he was still caught. But he didn't fall into the trap. He replied briefly, politely, but left no opening. "Good. Hope you're well." Nothing more, nothing less. I failed at this step in the past, replying too long, too enthusiastically, only to see them disappear again. But now I understand, when they come back, it's rarely a sign of love or regret, it's a power test. They want to know if you're still under their control. According to Stoicism, Epictetus teaches us, respond to what is worthy of your time and energy. If you maintain indifference, not intentional ignoring, but natural indifference, they will panic, not because of you, but because they realize they no longer have any influence over you. My opinion, this is the ultimate test to prove your inner freedom. Don't reply out of habit or fleeting emotion, reply only when you truly want to, or better yet, don't reply at all. I saw a friend pass this test. He received a message from his ex after 8 months, but he chose silence. The result? She called 3 times afterwards, but he remained unwavering. That's when you know you're truly free. Finally, this man reached a state where she no longer meant anything. Her name no longer evoked any emotion, no anger, no longing, just a blur in a distant memory. He didn't need to prove anything to her or anyone. He just lived, and lived fully. I experienced this moment after years of practicing Stoicism. One day, I realized I no longer thought about my ex, not because I tried to forget them, but because I was too busy building my life. This is the real goal, not to make them regret it, but to make the past something that no longer has value in your present. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When you control your mind, you control everything. No one can hurt you unless you allow it. For this man, she might look back and see how far he had come. Someone who was once the center of her world was now just a faint figure. But he didn't care. He was free, not because he won over her, but because he won over himself. This is the peak of unbreakability, when you no longer need anyone to validate your worth. This is the final destination, a life where you are no longer shaped by anyone or any past. This man no longer wondered what she was doing, no longer needed validation from her or anyone else. He entered every room with a quiet confidence, not because he wanted to be noticed, but because he knew he was enough, strong enough, worthy enough, complete enough. I believe this is what we should all strive for, not to win over others, but to win over ourselves. For me, true joy doesn't come from how others see me, but from living true to what I believe in. For this man, she might regret it, might silently follow him from afar, but it no longer mattered. He had built a new reality, a reality where he was the sole master of his destiny. Seneca said, "The greatest man is he who chooses right with the most invincible resolution." In psychology, this is called emotional autonomy, the state where you no longer let others define your feelings of happiness or hurt. This man didn't just get over the pain, he turned it into the foundation for a new life, a life where the past no longer had any power over him. And that is the ultimate power. When you become the master of your own destiny, no one can shake you. My dear friends, this is the moment for you to stand up. Not tomorrow, not when someone validates you, but right now. You don't need anyone to give you value, because you are the reward, a flame that no one can extinguish. Stoic philosophy teaches us, true strength lies not in controlling others, but in mastering oneself, and today, you have laid the foundation for that. I once witnessed a friend of mine overcome the darkness of a breakup by focusing on himself instead of waiting for salvation from others. He didn't just recover, he was reborn. You can do the same. This journey doesn't end here, it's just beginning. If you find value in what the Stoic path offers, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next lessons. I look forward to reading your thoughts in the